But when I want to give them a real power boost in the beginning of the spring, is I make a concoction which I like to call a pony poo tea bag.
A pony poo tea bag.
Yes, yes.
Hi, it's Steph, and I bring you to the beautiful country of France. I have been here on vacation, which the European people of this area would call holiday, and it has been wonderful. I have traveled with a few coworkers, and we are at a place called Camp Chateau, which is located in a region of France called Lavender, and I believe I said that correctly. But in a few moments, we are going to speak to Emily and Ruth, who are the groundskeepers and gardeners here at Camp Chateau. This place has been beautiful, and of course, as soon as I got here, I was able to find the gardens, and we're currently in the potager. So let me go ahead and catch up with Emily and Ruth, and we will get a little walk and talk through this beautiful garden. And I am here with Ruth, who is working on her morning chores. And of course, like us gardeners, she likes to get out here early while it's nice and cool, right?
That's correct.
And
yes.
she's working on deadheading. Ruth, how long have you worked here at the Chateau?
I've worked, this is my second season. So I started last year in June.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and prior to that, I was gardening for private clients.
Nice. And you've been here in France, you said, for about 8 years.
Yes, that's correct.
And
yes.
you worked with horses before?
I did. Yes.
Yeah, and then decided to go into gardening.
Yes, yes.
That's wonderful. You like gardening, obviously.
I do. I like earthy kind of stuff, nature.
Yeah.
Just being in there with it. Yes.
It's so wonderful. Having our hands in the dirt, the sun on our backs.
Exactly.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for agreeing to do this tour with me this morning. I'll let you work on some of your chores. I will introduce Emily, and then maybe we can get a little tour.
Okay.
Emily, how long have you worked at the Chateau?
The same as Ruth. This is my second season here, but I'm here all year round. So I get to do the autumn and winter and starting of the spring here.
I love your accent, you know.
Thank you.
Did you originally grow up in France?
No, I've been here 16 years. I moved here with my husband. I come from Cornwall. So
Cornwall.
yeah.
Yes, you did
Southwest.
tell me that when we were making jam yesterday.
Yes.
Emily has shown me here's two beautiful horses today. Can you remind me their names?
It's Comtesse and Emma.
And Emma.
Yes.
And Comtesse is the baby, or is Emma the baby?
No, Comtesse is the baby.
She's 4.
She's 4 and Emma's 10.
And Emma's 10.
Yes.
And Emily keeps her horses here during the season when you work, which is wonderful.
That's right.
They were looking for their treat, their
they
bread.
Were, and I didn't give it to them this morning, so they weren't happy.
Maybe before I leave, we can go give them some bread. I would love to see that,
sure.
if you'll show me.
Yeah.
So this morning, you're also assisting Ruth with the deadheading. So you both work on this together?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll go around and just kind of observe your work and maybe ask you some questions about the plants.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. So do you work more with the plants here in the potager, and then does Ruth do more of the rose keeping?
Ruth does a lot more sort of on the flower side. I do the vegetable side.
Oh, nice.
But I'm also the groundskeeper, so I have to do other tasks as well. So
pruning and fertilizing.
Yeah, and doing the swimming pools and just general grass cutting, hedge cutting. So
you have a lot to keep you busy.
Yes, very.
I'll let you get to your work, and I'll just ask you questions as you do that.
Right.
I don't want to hold you up. But this is beautiful, this border here.
It is lovely.
There's just something about being in an old castle that just makes the gardens really look extra beautiful. Yes.
Yes. For coming in here, it's like, well, what can we plant? What's going to be pretty?
Your gladiola, that purple one in the center.
It's gorgeous.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I love that.
It is like a dusty purple, mauve, like an antique color. Stunning.
With a flash of pink in the middle.
Yes, that is beautiful. And what is this in the center? Oh, was this your this plant in the middle?
They were peonies.
Peonies.
They are peonies, but they flower very early in the season.
In the spring.
Yeah, they've gone over now, but they come back every year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perennials, and you have some beautiful phlox. Were these phlox grown from seed, or are these perennial?
No, they're perennial.
Oh, beautiful. Look at this color.
All that we've got here in this border are perennial, so they'll come back every year, and hopefully they'll get bigger and bigger and really fill out this space. It's looking a bit patchy at the moment because it was just installed.
Yeah,
this
it will
year.
take time to fill in.
Yeah,
your scabiosa here
I love scabiosa.
Oh my goodness, it is beautiful.
Yeah,
the color of this one is like a lime.
Yeah, it's so pretty.
Look at this. The pollinators really love it too.
Yes, yes.
This color is stunning. Emily, I want to ask you about the word potager. What does that mean? It's a French word, right?
It's potager is normally like vegetable gardening or gardening. So
flowers and vegetables,
flowers
right?
and vegetables.
I'm
Yes.
trying to create a little potager at home because I just love having them growing together. You have some really tall sunflowers here, and Ruth and yourself were telling me that they were a mix, so you didn't know which ones were going to come up and what size they would be.
Yes.
But now when you tag them, you'll be able to identify them for next year when you
We will. Yes.
plant them out. And you have some herbs growing in these boxes. Your rosemary is huge.
Yeah, the rosemary was planted about 10 years ago, I think.
Wow!
By the old owner. But then we've added the boxes and the herbs in between, so it kind of grouped everything together.
I love that. So it makes like an herb border, and you use that in the cooking.
And it's easier
here.
for the kitchen to come across and cut what they need than having to step between all the flowers and everything.
I agree. We don't like when people step on our flowers. No. You know, rosemary doesn't come back in my region. I'm in the United States. We use a USDA growing zone. I talked to the girls about this morning, and you don't really do that here.
No.
When you're looking for plants, you just kind of see what the lowest temperature is that they can withstand.
Yeah.
And here in Europe, it's Celsius.
Yes.
And in the States, I have the Fahrenheit. So my rosemary does not come back, but I'm impressed by the sheer volume that you have here and the size of your clump of rosemary. What other herbs do you have that come back every year that don't die back?
They all come back. Yeah. The dill self-seeds. The parsley will die off, but the root stays in and that comes back. All the mint comes back, the oregano, the thyme, the sage, everything came back this year.
That's
the only
great.
thing I added was the chamomile, because the chamomile didn't
return.
No.
Is that the little white blooms that you have here?
Yeah. But the dill self seeds, we've got it popping up because it used to be in the garden here. It just pops up everywhere. The chives we just cut down. The chives come back every year. Everything has come back.
That's
every
great.
Year.
My chives come back, my oregano comes back, and my sage. But the rosemary, I have to plant every year if I want to keep some. Look at this beautiful stand of cosmos that you have here. These were all grown from seed?
They were, yes.
Yeah, and at the end of the season, you'll collect
the seeds.
And you'll save them.
Yes. The zinnia from last year. That was the only thing we kept that grew last year, because last year I started at the end of May, so it was too late to really do anything. So all we had here was a bit of zinnia, we had some marigolds, and the rest didn't come back this year. So
you'll just collect seed and keep the cycle going.
Yes. Yeah.
I noticed that Ruth also told me that you have some cornflower in between the cosmos and the zinnias, and those we call bachelor buttons. Is another name for them.
Right.
But they have a really beautiful blue color.
They're magnificent. We tried to create sort of a patchwork quilt here. So we got like squares of different colors.
So you have your zinnias and then the blue and then the cosmos with the pink.
Yes.
I like that idea of a patchwork.
Yeah.
Yeah, very colorful.
It is. So next year it'll be sort of even more sort of colorful. The place that we've got is a bit thin on the ground. It's because everything we planted there was eaten by the slugs.
Oh, you deal with a lot of slugs here.
Well, because we've had a very, very wet spring, wet winter. And slugs are not big slugs, they're just minute and you don't see them, and then they'll just come overnight and they eat a lot.
Yeah, we deal with slugs quite a bit, as well as earwigs. I think I shared that with you. Is there anything that you do to help control the slugs?
We get organic slug pellets is the only thing we can do.
Okay.
You can put down ashes from the fire, but there's no fire here, so
that
ashes are more sort of...
Yeah,
cups of beer.
Oh, beer!
You have drunk slugs.
Yes, well, that always works.
Yes,
they drunkenly fall into the beer, and that's the end of that.
Where I used to live, we used the ashes from the fire, and that helped.
You find that that's a great method to use. Good. A lot of people like to have fire pits and such, so those ashes, that would be a great use for that. Ruth just shared with us that her mom calls the sunken beer traps for the slugs slug pubs.
That's correct.
I love that. Yes. We should forever call the slug traps slug pubs.
And she has snail jails.
Snail jails. Does she make the snail jails with beer as well?
No. She has a pot with a lid on.
Yeah.
And she catches the snails and puts them in the pot.
And that's it.
And
They're
that's
in
a
jail.
snail jail.
I
And
love
then she'll
that.
take them out into the countryside somewhere and empty the place out.
Now they're someone else's problem.
Yes, they're free. Not in jail anymore for somebody else's problem.
That's right.
The white marguerite over there, which are like the really big kind of daisies that you can see that look a bit like echinacea.
Oh, yes,
Coneflower, but they're daisies. And these ones are another sort. And they make, well, you can see actually, this one's just about to come into flower and they make these lovely sort of purpley, pinky flowers.
Oh, how pretty is that?
Yeah.
So Marguerite daisies is what that's called.
Yeah.
This here. So do they look like a little, they look like a daisy?
They look like a daisy, but sort of bright pink or bright purple.
Oh, very pretty. I've never heard of Marguerite daisies before.
Well,
so I'm going to look those up.
Yeah.
I actually asked Ruth about that because I thought that this here was a dahlia. And she informed me that there was something called a Marguerite daisy, which I wasn't familiar with. But this foliage looked like there was a dahlia tuber popping up here. And your verbena looks great.
Yes. Yes, they're so easy and they're fabulous.
Yes.
And the bees and the butterflies absolutely love them.
And you have some pretty impressive cosmos. They're not even staked, but because they're so densely planted, they're staying up pretty nicely.
That's the thing, they support each other. Yeah, which is kind of what I always try to achieve in a garden. And you generally plant quite close together because it encourages the plant to grow up high. They all give each other support. And also because they're competing with each other, it encourages them to make a lot more flowers than if you really spread them out.
That's really smart.
Yeah.
I like that. And then sometimes in the States, like when we're planting, the recommendation is to give them proper spacing so that they don't encourage disease and things like that on the foliage. But I find that like in nature, things grow close.
Plant, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't do that with roses by any means.
Oh, yeah, the roses.
But cut flowers, yeah. Or general border plants. In the UK, we're very big on our borders. We generally start with a very short plant at the front and the height gets bigger as they go back. So they all kind of support each other.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's kind of what we've done here.
Wonderful. Yeah, and it's working pretty well. I can see that.
Yeah.
I really can't get over how large these sunflowers are. They're looking beautiful and they're as tall as almost the roof line.
Yes.
Right behind them. So pretty. Talking about the sunflowers, I mentioned to Ruth that as we were on the train coming here to the chateau, we saw so many fields and I'm like, what do they do with those sunflowers? Do they cut them for cut flower sales? But they don't. What do they actually do?
They make sunflower oil.
Oh,
that's one of the produce that the farmers make here. So and obviously they sell the seeds as well.
Yeah.
If they're not making the oil.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that with me because I was so curious about all those beautiful fields of sunflowers that we caught on the train.
Yes.
Tell us a story about butterfly bushes. I said that there is a love-hate relationship with them in the States because they're not always native, right? They're not native for us here or there, and they could be quite invasive. So what is...
That's correct.
What do you know about butterfly bushes?
Well, in the UK, you see them along the train tracks, all along the train tracks. And when you go into the cities, you see them growing out of the walls of the buildings. They are incredibly, incredibly invasive. And apparently the story goes, this is a story my dad told me, so how true it is, I don't know. I haven't researched it, but it kind of makes sense. So the butterfly bushes, when they were shipping cargo over from India about 100 years ago, the butterfly bushes, we call them buddleia.
Buddleia, yeah, and it's back here. I'm focusing on the banana, the banana tree, but it's the purple one here in the back. So I'll move that way.
So the buddleia trees, they drop their seeds, and many, many of them. You can see how many seeds there are on this dead head there.
A bunch.
So when they were shipping cargo from India, the buddleia seeds would blow off onto the cargo containers. And they'd stay there all the way across the shipment to the UK. And then they would come off the ships and go on to the trains to be taken across the UK, the cargo containers, full of buddleia seed. And as the trains were moving along, the buddleia seeds blew off. And that's why you get a lot of buddleia growing along the train tracks and the buildings in the UK. And that's apparently how it came to the UK. How true that is or not, I don't know. And
it actually makes a lot of sense.
It does make a lot of sense. Yes, exactly. Because we have them growing in the walls. We have them growing in the grass.
They get everywhere.
They get everywhere. And they can be very, very invasive. Personally, I don't mind them because they attract a huge amount of butterflies and bees.
They really do. And I honestly, really do. I think they're very fragrant. Do you find that they are?
Yes, they are.
What do you think they smell like?
I don't know.
I think, and I'll tell you, and then maybe you can tell me if you agree. I feel like they smell a little bit like lilac.
They do. You're right.
Right?
Yeah, I never really thought about that.
Yeah. As we were looking here at your perennial border, I was curious about the type of soil that you have here in the garden.
Right. It's very dry.
Well draining.
Well draining, but not a lot of nutrition in there. There's hardly any worms. So this fall, we will encourage worms by maybe digging some manure into it to enrich the soil more, because it's not very fertile at the moment.
What kind of manure do you have here at the
We
chateau?
have horse manure.
Yes, you
due
do.
to Emily's horses being here, and I have 2 horses at home as well. And I do a rotation of my horse manure. So I have one pile that's sort of a year old, and then I start a new pile. So I'll bring my mature stuff here too.
You do have to wait for it to age, right?
Yes, yeah, because fresh
Compost.
manure is too acid, and it will burn the root system of plants.
Okay.
So you have to wait for it to mature.
Perfect.
There are ways that you can use it when it's green, but I'll tell you about that later when we go to the roses.
That sounds good. I would love that. We're here with Emily in her vegetable garden, and this is the bed that I noticed yesterday. You have
Yeah, the Three Sisters.
Yeah, it works well for you, the Three Sisters method.
It does, yes. Yeah.
So you want to explain to us what it is and what you have growing?
Well, we've got the corn, we've got the beans, and then we've got the squashes. So the beans give lots of nitrogen to the corn. That sort of helps with the improve the soil. The corn actually acts as the sticks as well, because we've got the beans, as you can see, climbing up, and then the corn acts as the shelter for the squashes. And I've actually doing the same as the beans. We've got the melon here, because the melon likes to climb, so it keeps it off the ground. It doesn't sort of go mouldy so much, and then the fruits all hang nicely. So
that's very smart. I've always heard the Three Sisters with the corn, the beans, and squash.
Yeah.
But melon
can as well.
Yeah, and it trails, so it will grow along the bottom.
Yep.
That's really great use of space.
It is.
I love that. Yeah, the Three Sisters is very popular, and it's a good way to maximize the use of a planting bed.
It is. And last year we didn't have anything here, so we've created this for this year. So
nice.
It was difficult to actually work out whether this was a good spot or not, because because of the sun.
Looks like it's
the
okay.
bed that we wanted to put in, because the winter was so wet, we ploughed and it was just not possible. It just rained too much.
It rained too much.
We kind of put this together this year. Steve kindly, who's the property manager, kindly put these together for us, so we could have something this year.
Yeah, and it looks like you still have room, Emily, for a couple more beds.
We do.
I see one that can go there, maybe another one here. So Ruth is working on weeding that bed there, and that is where you have your, I love the way that you say, we say tomatoes, you say
tomato.
Tomato. It sounds so elegant. I love that. And so you use these the kitchen will come and get things once they ripen to use in their cooking for the chateau.
They can, and then with all the campers here, I planted cherry tomatoes, so people as they're walking by can just pick the cherry tomatoes and eat them. So
there is nothing better than a hot cherry tomato off of the vine on a summer day, right?
That's right. Yep.
Delicious. And
they're all companion planted. So we've got we say courgette, you say zucchini.
We say courgette sounds better, right?
Yeah, so we've got the courgettes, we've got the tomatoes, there's spinach in there, there's strawberries, we've got the aubergine, which is your eggplant.
Yes.
The peppers, there's chili peppers, there's carrots, marigolds. So they're all grow in harmony together.
So you have your garden, this vegetable garden here in the open.
Yes.
And you talked about marigolds, which prompted a question.
Yes.
Do you have pests like bunnies and chipmunks, squirrels?
No, we don't have pests like that.
Deer? Do you have deer?
Well, there are deer, but because we're in a walled garden, we don't get the deer in, so we're lucky.
You are very lucky.
Yeah.
So this can be open like this.
Yes.
Do you find that the marigolds help with insect pests?
They do. Yeah.
Which one specific? Green fly.
Yeah, green fly, black fly. They attract them, and also the tomato plants thrive with the marigolds as well. So
good. So it's
they're pollinators.
To have them.
Yeah, they're the best. One of the best pollinators for the gardens.
I like that. Very nice. So you have them.
And at home I have my courgettes or the zucchini with dahlias.
Are they good companions?
They're very good companions.
So how do they help each other? The
So
dahlias and the
dahlias
courgettes?
are the flowers of the pollinators
Oh,
that bring in all the butterflies, the bees, and everything.
Because you do need them to pollinate in order to set fruit.
You do. And we do have some fruit in there.
Yeah, look at this one here. If you wait too long, you know, in the United States, we'll say that it becomes like a baseball bat.
Yeah.
They grow very fast.
They do grow very fast.
So it looks like yours has a little bit of powdery mildew. Now, this is very common. And it usually doesn't affect the set of the plant, but eventually it can kill it. So do you just prune off the foliage?
You can prune off the foliage, yes. Yeah.
Good. Do you treat it with anything, or do you just prune?
You can just prune, or you can you can actually water in some milk and water. That helps with
milk, like regular milk.
Regular milk.
And what is the ratio that you usually do?
About 1 to 10.
So 1 part milk. 10 parts water. Mix that. Spray it.
No, you can either spray it, or you can actually just water it into the base of the plant. But when you water as well, because we've had so much rain, they don't like the wet on the leaves.
Right.
When you water, you're best to water at the roots,
at the base of the plant.
base of the plant.
Oh, that is so cool. I purposely did not grow zucchini or courgettes this year because I always deal with the squash borer, which is a bug that gets into the. You don't deal with that. No. But so powdery mildew would probably be your biggest pest on growing this plant.
Yeah, and because it was so wet here, it's suffered. It's coming back. It's got some lovely.
Yeah, it does have some good foliage too. That's good. So I will give it a shot again next year, and if I encounter powdery mildew, I will try 1 part milk, 10 parts water, and water it at the base.
Yes.
Good. We're in the rose garden with Ruth, and I was explaining to her how I have a difficult time with roses because I deal with a lot of yellow spot and black spot.
Yes.
And you say you have a similar issue.
We do. When I came to work here last year, last June, I came to an absolute catastrophe here with the roses. I mean, the previous gardener who'd worked here for over 10 years had never fed the roses. Didn't know how to cut the roses back properly, so they'd been badly pruned, and never ever watered them through the summer. You don't have to give a rose too much water in the summer. They can withstand quite a lot of drought, but they need a bit, like all plants.
Right.
So because they'd never been fed and never been pruned properly, their immune system was really, really trashed, and for that reason they were catastrophically covered in black spot. And I'm not joking, literally when I came here I had to take off every single leaf of every single plant. They were completely bare.
That was a big job.
It was a big job. And you know, I had to continue like that all the way through the flowering season, taking off the leaves. How I'm tackling that is basically with black spot. The problem is it's a cycle because it lives in the ground. It's a fungal infection.
Yes.
Okay. So in effect, what happens when a rose gets black spot, like that's not a rose leaf. Actually, right, I'll take this one off because I would take it off anyway.
To show us.
So is this here, these black spots, and eventually there'll be so many on the leaf it can't photosynthesize to that leaf anymore, so it drops it on the floor. And what happens when it drops it on the floor? The fungus goes into the ground,
into the soil,
and then when it rains, the fungus splashes back up onto the rose again. So you've got a constant vicious cycle. So to stop that, you need to do 2 things. First of all, you need to strengthen your rose, and you do that by feeding and pruning, and also you need to strengthen the soil. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we all have bacteria. It's the same as in our stomach. We have good and healthy bacteria, but there has to be a balance.
Yes.
And if there's not a balance, the bad bacteria can win, and that's when you have a problem. That's when we have a problem with our immune systems as well. It's when the bad bacteria within inside ourselves gets too much for our immune system to cope with. So by doing that, you need to feed the soil as well. And that's more of an autumn and a springtime job, really. So unfortunately, I wasn't here last autumn because I had to have an operation on my shoulder. But this autumn, I will dig manure into the soil. Any kind of banana skins are great for roses and soil.
Really?
As well. Yeah, they're full of potassium, and roses really, really need potassium. They love it.
That's good to know.
And that's a little tip, actually. If you're ever planting a rose, when you dig the hole, Put about 4 or 5 banana skins in the hole, and then put the rose on top of that, and it gives it a real good power boost to get
That's
it started.
good. I
And it
love
loves-
that.
Yeah, and it
We
loves
eat lots
it.
of bananas. Another good use for them.
We eat a lot of bananas in our household.
Yes, they're good.
So feeding. What I feed these roses with, and you can buy regular rose feed from the store, and it usually comes in little pellets or it comes in a liquid form. I find the pellets to be more nutritious. They're better, but the problem with them is they're slow feeding, so they don't get into the soil very quickly. So I use those as a later on feeder. But when I want to give them a real power boost in the beginning of the spring, when all the sap's rising and they're starting to make their fresh leaves and things, is I make a concoction which I like to call a pony poo tea bag.
A pony poo tea bag.
Yes.
That is fun.
I have 2 horses, so I'm privy to as much manure as I like. But this is where you can use green manure. Okay, so you take an old pillowcase and you sort of just below half fill that with green manure, and then you put some banana skins in there and some coffee grounds, and you tie a knot into it.
And we just say green manure. It's not actually green. It's just the new fresh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's correct. And then you stick that in a big bin of water and you leave it for 48 hours, and then you take out your tea bag. And what you end up with is a good mix of stuff that's ready to go on the compost, which is in your tea bag. You can put that onto the compost and it acts as a really good activator for your compost. And also you end up with a very, very rich soup, which is far too rich to put directly on your roses. You'll burn the root system. So you take a scoop of that out and put it in your watering can. You dilute it down so it resembles a very weak green tea.
Yeah.
And then you can water your roses directly with that. You can actually use it on any plant, but it's very, very good for roses. It's a real good power boost.
What kind of nutrients do you think it gives them?
It gives them nitrogen, it gives them potassium, it gives it everything that it needs to really sort of
increase blooming and the health of the plant.
Exactly. And with these roses, because they've been so poorly, I continually feed them through the summer. Generally, if you've got a really healthy rose, you'll need to give it one big feed in the springtime when it's sort of coming back out of its sleep from the winter, and then maybe 2 or 3 times through its flowering season.
Yeah.
But with these roses, because they've been really, really poorly, and unfortunately when roses get ill, they take a very long time to recover.
Yes.
We're talking 5 or 10 years, maybe more. But if a rose is looked after really well, it should have enough immunity to be able to fight off this bacteria. So yeah, I feed these roses about once every 2 weeks. And because we've had so much rain this year as well, that's been a problem for the black spot, obviously.
Oh yeah.
So I haven't really wanted to put too much more water on them. So I have used a lot of the dry pellets this year as well.
And when you say dry pellets, is it just like a granular type fertilizer?
Yeah, they just look like they look like pellets, and they've just got like a compact with everything it needs.
And they slowly break down as it rains
or
you water.
They do. But you can use this if you don't have access to horse manure. You can use those as a liquid form as well.
Yeah.
And I've done it with the roses here when I've forgotten to make my tea bag.
Give us the name of that again.
Pony poo tea bag.
Pony poo tea bag. That's great.
So you've had slug pub, snail gels, and now pony poo tea bags.
I love it.
There we go.
Great.
You can get those granules, and I've done it. I've put them in a pot, and I put a bit of water with them and made them into a mush. And then just scooped a spoonful of mush into the watering can and watered it down, and then watered that straight onto the roses.
Perfect.
So it gets down into the root system very, very quickly. Yeah.
How many roses do you have here at Camp Chateau?
I haven't counted them all.
You haven't, yeah.
No, but I'm guessing in the region of about 200 roses. There's an awful lot.
At least. I was walking the property, and it makes a perimeter all along the space here. And then you have some really pretty bunny-tail grasses, some gara, and even some echinops, some globe thistle that looks really beautiful that we'll go take a look at.
Yes.
But beautiful. And this is the orchard in the center.
Yes, that's right.
Apples, pears.
Apples, pears, plums. Yeah.
So many pretty roses in this garden.
Unfortunately, I don't know the names of these roses because they were planted a very long time ago, and there were never any kind of name tags on them. I think they're a mixture of English roses and French roses.
This is a pretty one as well.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I could see that you hard prune them.
I
to
do
clean
hard
them up.
prune them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Do you do that mostly in the spring, or do you prune them anytime that they start to look like they have a dry cane or diseased cane?
If they've got a dry cane or a diseased cane in the flowering season, I take that off.
Yes.
To give the healthy part of the plant extra energy and to focus the plant's energy on going into the healthy part. With these kind of roses, and they're sort of pretty much standard roses, I prune them in the spring.
Give them a good
Yeah. I mean, I deadhead them all the way through the season. Like I say, if there's a weak part of the plant, like this part, I'll probably take that off today.
That shoot there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because
it's taking a lot of
brown.
energy. It's trying to put so much energy into that part of the plant, and it's taking it away from the healthy stuff. So I'll whip that off today.
This looks like an iceberg rose.
Yeah, I don't know what rose it is, but you know, this one is
Fragrant.
Extremely susceptible to black spot.
Oh.
And I've taken, you know, I can strip all these leaves off, and then as soon as it starts making new leaves, it comes back again.
Right here, you can see
it's
some
a very
black spot.
fragile rose, unfortunately. And funnily enough, when my partner and I moved to our new house, there was one that was very similar, and I think it might be the same rose in the garden already there, and it suffers with the same problem.
Yeah.
I think it's just it's clearly quite an old rose. You can tell by the wood.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah. That's a very old cane.
Yeah, it's a very old cane. It's clearly quite an old rose. So I think I'm going to kind of do a do or die with this.
Yes.
In the spring.
Sink or swim.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of really cut it back hard.
Give it a hard prune.
And then if it makes fresh new canes, it does. If we lose it, I'll replace it with something else.
With something better, right?
Because it's just so poorly. And, you know, all my techniques are working with the other roses.
But this one has a hard time.
And not working with this one at all.
Japanese beetles, do you deal with those?
The sort of, yes. We call them scarabs here. They're like a bluey green colour.
They love roses that have an open
they get
center
right
like this.
in the centre.
Yes, the ones that are like this specifically, I find.
And the ones that are really highly scented as well.
Oh.
They get right in the centre of the rose and eat the whole thing out.
Now, how do you deal with those?
Well, all I can do is go around and pick them out.
Pick them out?
Yeah.
Do you put them in a bucket of soapy water?
No, I kind of pick them out and
throw them.
I don't like killing things.
Well, the slug pubs and the snail jails, this would be like a Japanese...
Yeah, but the slugs die happily.
Okay.
Kind of like on a cloud 9, do they not?
Yes. I guess we would call these...
And the snails don't die. They get released.
They just relocate. They get
Yeah.
relocated.
Yeah.
We would call the Japanese beetle bucket with soapy water the swimming pool.
Okay.
The Japanese beetle swimming pool. I love roses, but they just don't love me back. So I'm always trying to learn tips and tricks to try to kind of prevent the black spot, the yellow leaf, because like you said, they take a really long time to recover. I have a rose ICU, an intensive care unit, which I put them in pots because they were doing terribly in the ground.
Yeah.
And they seem to be recovering some, but I know it'll be some time before they thicken up.
I've done that with a few of the roses here actually, because they were so weak and so small, really, really struggling. And I just thought, you know, damn it. So I've dug them out and I've got them in pots in ICU at mine. And in those pots, they've got banana skins in them and everything.
I'm gonna start digging my banana skins into my plants now, into my roses specifically.
Yes,
see if that gives them a good boost.
Okay, so climbing roses can be cut back in the autumn when they finish their flowering season.
I have one climber right now.
Yeah, so and you can take up to 1/3 of its size.
1/3.
Yeah, 1/3.
Okay.
With a climbing rose, you generally want it to fan like that. There is a rule that roses shouldn't cross over too much. Which is very true with these guys, but with a climbing rose, that's virtually impossible. I mean,
that is true.
Yeah. So you want them to fan out the bottom, and then they kind of go a bit crazy up top. So you can take that craziness off and leave it, you know, cut it back to the fan again, and then the next season. And you do that in autumn before the frost.
Look at the size of this beetle. That is huge. I've never seen such a big bug. I'm glad that you're not afraid of it, because I might have been running.
It makes me laugh when I see a beetle on its back, because my dad, when he used to come here and lie in the hammock, he could never get out of the hammock.
Oh, so
he always used to say, I feel like a beetle that's stuck on his back.
So that's what you're equating this to. Look at this guy. I've never seen such a big bug. That is huge.
Yeah. Go on, buddy. There you go.
Ruth, I have a question. So you just mentioned that you always cut your roses on a diagonal, which is great because I do that as well.
Yes.
You don't want the water to sit on a flat, straight cut.
Yes, that's right.
But do you also disinfect your pruners between roses?
Yes, I should all the time. With these roses, they've all got the same disease, so sometimes I don't.
Yes.
That's a bit naughty, but yes, you should. Rule of thumb.
You're being naughty. What would you disinfect them with?
Any kind of alcohol-based
Yes.
disinfectant.
That's
Yeah.
what I do. I keep a little spray bottle and I spray my pruners.
Yes. Yeah.
Emily is showing me her compost. And so there are 2 piles. This is the cold compost.
Yes.
And you're still learning how to develop the hot compost.
Yes.
So what do you add here to your cold
Here
compost?
we've got grass, we've got leaves, we've got branches, we've got some fruits that have come off the trees. Literally anything green goes in here. We put in the horse manure as well, so we keep everything layered up. So that's our cold compost.
Do you have to turn it like you do with the hot?
Yeah, we do, but I'll get my husband to do that in the autumn because he's got a mini digger, so he can come in and it's easier because it's down a pit.
That's helpful.
So it's a bit difficult to
do.
turn.
So this is very useful, especially when you have large grounds to cover.
It is, yes.
Yeah, and that way you don't have to purchase compost and bring it in. You just make it.
We just make it, yes.
That's good.
Yeah.
Here in the gardens, there are also some really beautiful borders of lavender. And you walk by this path on your way to the swimming pool, and scent just wafts in the air, and it is just such a calming fragrance. And Camp Chateau has set out these little, this station, a lavender station with these little organza bags that you can take cuttings of the lavender to put in the bags and then set them out to dry, creating a little lavender satchel that you can take home as a little memento from camp and the gardens. I was speaking to Emily and Ruth about the dahlias, and here in their climate, they do not have to dig them up. They usually just mulch with some leaves, and they're able to leave their tubers in the ground. Now, I asked if this variety was Thomas Edison because it does look like it to me, but they came in a mixed bag, so they weren't labeled. But what a beautiful dahlia. Not only is Ruth an amazing rosarian, she's also a singer. Listen to this talented lady. I want to thank Ruth and Emily for being so gracious and spending their time with me this morning, walking us through the gardens and sharing some wonderful tips with us. Thank you all so much for spending your time with us, and I will catch you in the next one.